Okay, so this is my vision for the future, and a roadmap for how to get there. Understanding that what drives me is um, self-regulating perpetual systems, meaning an economy and a society that is capable of perpetual wealth generation, legacy wealth generation, and that begins with the individual, but also the government containing those people has to be capable of appreciating its assets. Understanding also that every government, the only true assets are the people, the expertise, the skills, and the resources of the people that it contains. And so the objective of a government, therefore, is to activate and appreciate the dormant potential of its people. Of course, of its natural resources as well. But that should be a byproduct of the appreciation of the assets of the people in order to meet an unmet need within the ecosystem that is society. And so that's always going to be my driver, is unlocking and appreciating dormant potential of human beings to meet a currently unmet need in perpetuity, and establishing a baseline of quality of life that is above survival, and surplus wealth is always being utilized for innovation, but never sacrificing the baseline quality of life. I can see this very clearly, that it's not only possible, but relatively simple conceptually. And so I want to share my vision. Now, some of you may know, some of you who listen to this podcast, who listen to it because of topics such as free energy, and perpetual systems, you'll know that. Actually, no, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that for now. So I'm just going to go straight into it. So this is my vision for a nation, and therefore the planet, to be able to become a wealth-generating vehicle. And so it begins with the appreciation of the assets of the individuals, of the human beings. Now, in our current society, in New Zealand anyway, we have what's called an asset register. And so people register their assets on this register. I think it's called PPSR or something like that. And we have the intellectual property register as well. So you've got intangible assets and then physical assets. But those two things are fragmented. They're not in any structure such as a marketplace or anything. It's just a register, and there it is, all just sitting there. And, some of it's being used. I'd say a very small fraction of it's actually being utilized. But one of the worst issues that we have is in terms of the appreciation of assets and innovation, is the mechanism for commercializing intellectual property that is unearthed as the result of academic research. So in the world of academia, you could have a scientist who is obsessively pursuing the validation of a hypothesis, unearths something that has significant utility in the world, and they submit it, and it goes into a big morass. It just goes into the public domain. And their mindset is that, well, if someone finds it and wants to use it for something, then it's in the public domain and it's there. They can commercialize it and they're on to the next thing. Now, I mean, that is horrendous. And just a few weeks ago, someone, after tons of research, discovered a way to pigment paint that prevents barnacles from growing on a boat. So the utility of that, I don't know how much it is to have barnacles removed from a boat, but from what I gather, it's done every 2 years for someone that has a boat that's mooring, and it's, a few $1,000s each time at least. And so there was no mechanism to really properly commercialize that. But the sad thing is that on paper there is a mechanism, but the culture surrounding new ventures and startups is very much, if you want my money, then you must X, Y, Z. And even within the circles that I'm involved with, venture capitalists and funds, it's this is what sums it up perfectly. A post on LinkedIn just a few weeks ago from a venture capitalist that I'm connected with and have been working with, and just to analyze some ventures. And there's a post on LinkedIn, and it was from a fund and directed at founders of startups, saying no one cares about your idea, and so stop making people jump through hoops to sign non-disclosure agreements before you'll share the thing, because no one cares. And so this is the culture that the ones that have money believe that it's the most important thing that's required for a venture. But of course, the only thing that's required for a venture is expertise, skills, and resources. If you have those things, then money is what you use to get those things. And so this arrogance around the money, not realizing that I've got a community around me of people who have discovered things, to use the example of the pigment and the paint, preventing barnacles from growing on a yacht. I've got people around me who have made discoveries that are far beyond this and far more disruptive than this, who will not share them because of their fear of how it'll be used in the world. And so here you have this juxtaposition where someone's discovered, let's say hypothetically it's an energy, it's a solution to free or clean energy, but it also has, but it's also a dangerous compound. Or that it's so disruptive that if it was dedicated to a purely commercial interest of a single entity that just wanted to profit from it, that it could change the arc of evolution on the planet. Have a massive impact on whether free energy is scarce or abundant to every human being. And so you have people who have genuinely groundbreaking discoveries, and then you've got the people who are capable of actualizing the potential of those things, who are just blasé and not willing to sign non-disclosure agreements, not willing to consider that there are people hiding in the shadows who are terrified of what could happen with their discovery, and all they need is for someone to understand and say, how can I help? And this is obviously one of the driving forces behind the blueprint and the method that I've developed, called a SERPO, a self-regulating perpetual organization, which is a hybrid of a DAO, a digital autonomous organization, a charitable trust, and a company, and interacting with legal persons and with natural human beings. And what this mechanism provides is an immutable structure that can never be destroyed. So if you are to come across a discovery, then you can protect the IP in perpetuity due to the interplay between these three entities and how authority is distributed amongst them through the separation of governance by the community, who are also the beneficiaries, by the constitution of the charitable trust, which is to activate, protect, and preserve the assets in its care, beginning with the human beings. So it doesn't have a commercial interest. It is purely tasked with appreciating, actualizing the potential of dormant assets and then preserving them at any cost. And then this charitable trust, as an entity, it is empowered by the community to act on its behalf as a third party to take care of disputes, and also to act as the treasury. So what this means is when there is a dispute, but it's always about the assets involved rather than the human beings. So it's devoid of emotion. It's purely about, okay, this is the scenario. Here is a conflict between two parties who are custodians of assets. And so how can we reconcile this issue in a way where all of the assets involved can continue to appreciate, or at the very least stop depreciating, perhaps be reconstituted in some way so that they can begin appreciating. But it's always focused on the assets involved, the appreciation of the assets. And this imbues restitution into a system of justice where you're always seeking restitution for what was lost. If something's depreciating for a period of longer than 3 months at a time, then it flags an intervention from the trustees, who can then conduct an audit, reveal the findings of that audit to all of the custodians involved in the situation, for them to choose how to act, decide how to act, to then lobby the rest of the community to submit a proposal to unlock funds from the Treasury that is then released and utilised to fulfil, that proposal. And so the company, of course, this is the powerhouse platform. This is a marketplace where all of the assets are featured. Intangible assets, all intangible assets, but they hold the entitlements and privileges to utilize physical assets. And so this marketplace is set up as, it's an asset marketplace, plain and simple, non-fungible tokens, which are basically smart contracts. They contain specific privileges, entitlements, as well as they can also contain conditions, obligations, and liabilities. So you have a mechanism through the custodianship of an NFT that replaces the entire mechanism for contracting between parties. And I call it bonding, where you have people bonded by the assets, because the asset is the contract. It contains the privileges and everything else, the obligations. And so what you have is a scenario where you can collaborate with people via the mechanism of agency. And agency is a mechanism of distributed authority where you are empowering someone to act on your behalf out of your best interests. And so this radically changes the dynamic of an organization, because let's say typically you would have an accountant, and that accountant advises you and then advises you what to do, and you make the decision on what to do. And of course that's valuable and useful. But an agency, what they would do in that scenario is they would provide the advice on what to do, but then they would also execute and act on your behalf. And so it's like having an agency is like having a finance department that you would have within an organization, only it's external. And so they have an agency to act on your behalf. And so in this scenario, so we've built the Powerhouse Marketplace in a way. We basically we pushed the WordPress multi-network system as far as we possibly could, pushing the boundaries of how we could utilize it to launch and scale an e-commerce business. But the reason we did this is because we want an exodus of people who have already got products and services listed on WordPress, using WordPress, WooCommerce specifically. There's over 1 million products and services estimated that are on WordPress, that are sitting there dormant on WordPress now. And so we built the system so that those products and services can be transitioned into digital assets or NFTs on our marketplace through an API. So they connect through API to our system. They click a button, and all of their products and services get converted into NFTs, which then become visible on the marketplace off-chain. Off-chain means not on the blockchain. So they sit there in a pool of dormant potential assets. So what we're doing here is we're utilizing this dormant asset marketplace to measure the latent potential of the market. And so when you have a scenario where you've got you're magnetizing people to the marketplace to submit their dormant expertise and skills and resources, turn them into assets containing entitlements, privileges, etc. And then you have an ecosystem of agencies who are empowered to go into that marketplace and appreciate them via business incubation. So you might look on the marketplace and you might see, wow, there's a lot of video editors. There's a creative director. There's an admin person. There's a business development person. So what you're doing is you can build a business using the dormant potential of the people on the marketplace, invite them to participate, and then you begin reconciling the contracts together. You begin reconciling the NFTs through the process of reconstitution, is what it's called, until the NFTs are all bonded together to form an entity that doesn't really exist other than in the imaginations of these people. And then they can collaborate to create a business together, utilizing their expertise and skills and resources as instead of needing money. Now, of course, we always need some money for things, but typically you would go to venture capitalists and get money to then go and get an accountant, to get a business development person, to get this, to get that. So in this scenario, you're bypassing that completely, and you've got people collaborating together for a share of the royalties from the sale. And that's the superpower of the platform we've built, is that when you create a product and a service, you can distribute royalties. So you might be selling a workshop, a $5,000 workshop. There could be 5 people involved in selling that workshop and administering it, and each of them gets a percentage of that $5,000 paid straight to them at the point of sale. And this happens in the formal economy. So when I say the formal economy, it means that it's done via Stripe, goes into people's bank accounts, and it's taxable. And so the government's happy. You can still operate utilizing NFTs, and everything is actually an NFT. But if someone purchases something in the formal economy, then you can also share the royalties in the formal economy, and the government receives their tax. So the one of the cool things about the Powerhouse marketplace, the asset marketplace, is you can then manage your own expertise and skills like it's a portfolio of assets. And so you log into the dashboard and you can see all of the NFTs that have got your skills in them. You can see which ones are active, which ones are dormant, which ones are appreciating, which ones are depreciating, and there's also one that shows you stagnation of assets. Now, stagnation of assets could mean so a dormant asset has not been activated yet, so it hasn't been appreciated to meet an unmet need. It's not part of a collaborative venture. It's not, no one's appreciating it. So a stagnant asset is one that has been activated, and it's just sitting there doing the exact same thing on rinse and repeat, and that is that's a sign of depreciation looming. So it's an ominous sign of depreciation, or at least a vulnerability that asset could be at risk because the venture is not expanding. And so what this signals to you as someone who's managing a portfolio of your own assets, which are your own skills, that could be being utilized across dozens of different projects, is you're looking at the stagnant one and you're going, okay, I need to proactively retain this. So stagnancy is a flag for proactive retention of an asset. And that would mean you go in, have a look, try and get sticky, try and uncover objections, try and look for opportunities for further growth. If you've got a business development person that's part of your collaborative venture, you'd flag to them, hey, it's time for a customer visit. Is there any more potential in there? Can we shore it up? How can we protect it, make it less vulnerable? Whatever it may be. But stagnancy is always the best trigger for a strategy session for the purpose of innovation, to create incremental growth somewhere. So then you've got appreciating assets, and that's pretty straightforward. You look at it, you take a 3-month snapshot, you look at that 3 months, and if it's growing month on month, that's an appreciating asset. And a depreciating asset is an asset that is producing less over the course of 3 months, incrementally less and less over 3 months. And that flags an intervention from the charitable trust, who have no authority. They're only authorized to come in and unearth just the reality of the situation. And it's an audit and a gap analysis and recommendations. Then those recommendations are put to the community. The community can say, okay, let's submit a proposal to unlock capital to execute this so that these assets can continue appreciating. And so you see this perpetual system. It self-perpetuates, self-regulates. All the authority is with the community. Everyone is empowered through distributed authority, and the fragmentation that is required through distributed authority that creates the immense diversity that you need is perpetually contained within a unified whole, within the collective marketplace of the Powerhouse platform, and within the ventures that are consolidating the fragmentation in the marketplace. So yeah, so the other superpower of the Powerhouse platform is that you can create themed marketplaces. So let's say so one of the products that we're going to be launching is the Spotify conversion feature. And so that enables someone who has access, not everyone has access to their Spotify account, but if you've got your music on Spotify and you upload it directly, then a way for you to transition, sorry, not Spotify. Spotify, it's too challenging to be done currently. Beatport, which is where you upload your music and you sell it as an artist and a record label. So through the click of a button, you can transition your music, the digital assets onto the Powerhouse marketplace, and so you've got all these things. You've got music included. You can have videos included. So rather than YouTube, you've got every digital asset and physical asset represented as an NFT on a marketplace. You can click it. You can play it. And of course, you've got a royalty distribution system that plugs into. So someone can come along and create a themed marketplace that is identical to Beatport or identical to Spotify that they can use to consolidate all of the music in that marketplace and sell it as a broker, or what we would call an affiliate marketer. And so you can create a bespoke marketplace and turn it into a music shop, and you can stock the shelves of your music shop with the NFTs from the Powerhouse marketplace. And if there's certain things you don't want to stock, you don't have to stock them. It can be a huge marketplace or a small one that's really, really niche. And if someone purchases the music or plays it or whatever, then the royalty distribution system sitting behind Powerhouse runs the whole thing. And everything goes back to the custodian of the assets. And so here, the thing I love about this is all of a sudden you have a structure that puts the artist in mind and turns a record label into what a record label was always meant to be. And that is for an entity to consolidate fragmented artists and do the marketing, advertising, and promotion on their behalf. So this way you have a record label, and if they want to represent an artist, they have to do the work and sell the product and promote it, and then they receive a commission for every sale. And I think, with the advent of digital music, there are a lot of digital record labels that they're not really doing advertising and promotion the way that a record label is meant to. And you can turn the fans into record labels. Well, into promotional people. They love the music anyway, and so if they earn 50% commission on a sale for selling a piece of music that they absolutely love, they'll post it to their Facebook, someone buys it, they receive 50% commission. This is what heart-led business really means. This is what passion-led business really means. And, I talk about turn your passion into profit, and always talking about passion. And it's kind of cliche, but this is what it actually means, is that passion is leading the spread of something. And, rather than money comes because people are doing what they'd just be doing anyway, telling someone about, this awesome piece of music. And they earn a commission for it. And of course they should. So you have this mechanism, and this has been so hard to describe to people, because when I'm talking to my team about Powerhouse or the trust or a DAO or the other business Morpheus, that is the pilot agency that can act on behalf of the community to run autonomous organizations, SERPOs. They tend to just think of them in isolation, but the truth is they're part of an invisible structure called a SERPO, which is the charitable trust bonded to the company, Powerhouse, the marketplace, which is bonded to the DAO. And all of the authority is distributed from the community to the charitable trust and then down to the company. And so the community always has the power to revoke anything, to revoke authority from the trustees, to replace them, but they stay out of the operational aspect of the setup. And this is essential because the community, they're not, if you look at Powerhouse as the company, for example, it needs a high-end CEO. It needs a COO. It needs a CIO. It needs a CTO, CFO. It needs super heavyweight specialist people who can execute. But they need to execute on behalf of the vision of the community, which is in the DAO. And in this setup, the community wants the commercial venture to be as commercially viable and successful as possible, so that the wealth generated can then be administered for the purposes of the vision of that community. And so everyone can just follow their own nature. The commercial beasts can, you set them free and say, make this as commercially successful as you possibly can, so that the wealth that's generated can be, the surplus wealth can go to where it's needed to meet an unmet need that may not be commercially viable, but is charitable in nature or whatever it may be. And now, what's important to realize about this is this can never be destroyed. It can never. And so let's say the scenario where someone's discovered free energy, they're too scared to bring it into the open because it's going to be, because it might be manipulated or controlled. In this scenario, it's in a common law fashion, the entitlement to possess the asset, activate it and appreciate it, is given to the community and the DAO under common law. And then the community delegates the authority, the agency, to act on behalf to the charitable trust. The charitable trust then delegates the authority to commercialise that IP to the company on Powerhouse. The assets are made available on Powerhouse. And then the greater community can come together to consolidate those fragmented assets into collaborative ventures and go nuts commercialising a business in the best way they know how, understanding that those assets on that marketplace will be made available to potentially hundreds, dozens, thousands, millions of people to use, but always administered by the DAO itself, who are entitled to revoke the authority that the trust has, which means that the commercial ventures utilising the IP can have it revoked based on specific terms. But more importantly, and this is the linchpin that is so helpful to inventors of disruptive inventions, is that if the government tries to regulate against it, seize control of it, take it, they can't lawfully do that, because the moment the government raises it as an issue, with the commercial venture that's utilizing the IP, the DAO can just revoke it. Revoked. And because the original IP is immutable, because it's in a common law constitution that's under the stewardship of the DAO, that's immutable, can't be touched. A government is a statutory entity, so it only exists under statute law, which is under the common law, because all governments of every nation, they operate through agency. So the individual, the common law individual, the natural human being, the natural individual, they appoint an agent on behalf of them, and that agent is your legal person. So mine is David Ding. My legal person on my birth certificate is actually it's an agent on behalf of the real human being, which is David of the Ding family. But David Ding capitalized is an agent on behalf, and as the agent on behalf, I empower the government to act on my behalf. And so it's all done through agency. And so by putting assets into the custodianship of the DAO under common law, then the agent, the legal person, David Ding, isn't empowered to utilize those assets, and the DAO delegates authority for the utilization of those assets to the charitable trust that is incorporated and can operate in statute law. But however, the DAO is always free to revoke that agency agreement, and without question. And so all of a sudden, it is impossible for any form of legal entity, fictional entity, like a company, a legal person, a government, to control that asset. Impossible. And it's immutable, and it can operate in the world of statute, it can operate in the world of common law. So it's a bridge between the worlds of, analog and digital law, common law and statute law. And this is really what I want to do, is the same with Web 2 and Web 3. The new distributed network that we're moving to of Web 3. It's a stretch for a lot of people. It's so confusing. There's so much fragmentation of assets and new tokens being minted every day and new marketplaces being formed, and NFTs have different conditions in them, so you can't really look at them as a currency. You have to view them as an asset rather than a means of exchange. And there's just, it's the inevitable consolidation of all of these assets that has to take place right now, and Powerhouse is that marketplace where it translates every form of non-traditional asset, where it translates it into a uniform, singular asset. In this scenario, what you have is you have an economy. So remember, the Treasury sits in the charitable trust. The Treasury is empowered by the community under common law through agency, and judicial sits in the trust as well. And this is where you have you have them impartially handling disputes, and you have a mechanism for direct democracy, digital direct democracy, where the community, they are empowered to create sub-DAOs or child DAOs, so they can form communities within the community to lobby the rest of the community on a proposal and have a singular spokesperson speak on their behalf. So you've got lobbying happening again within the community. They're not lobbying the Treasury, you see. They're lobbying the rest of the community to sponsor the proposal so that the community can delegate to the Treasury to release the funds for this. Now, the Treasury may come back and say, well, we've done some research, an audit, a gap analysis, and we realize you thought this was viable. It turns out it seems that it isn't viable. Goes to the community, and then the community goes, well, go ahead anyway because we have surplus wealth and this has a charitable purpose, da-da-da-da-da. So the voice of the community is always determining how to move forward, but the Treasury, it'll be a department within the Treasury, of course, but the Treasury are always revealing the potential worst-case scenarios, the potential vulnerabilities, the risks, but the voice of the community always determines whether to take that risk and move forward or not. So they're always self-responsible. And so you have an eternal structure of governance that is led by the community, that operates in the commercial world, that is charitable in nature. However, that charitable purpose is driven by the commercial success of a commercial entity or multiple commercial entities. And in the case of Powerhouse, Morpheus is an agency that's a licensed agent to run businesses on behalf of the Powerhouse community. And of course, there'll be multiple different agencies who can specialize in different things. Vertical markets will begin to appear. And so rather than having a single agency like we do in the current economy now, you have a single agency for vehicle licensing. You have a single agency for, vehicle testing. In this scenario, you could have hundreds or thousands of slightly different collaborative ventures happening who are all licensed in a similar way, and understanding that the community that governs the whole thing through the DAO, they are ultimately responsible for determining who receives a license. And so the trustees they appoint on the board of the trust, of the charitable trust, they have to have the appropriate advisory board and people helping them to determine, the rules and regulations for an entity receiving a license as an agent to act on behalf of the community for X. And so in this scenario, you have a government. The government is a charitable trust. Its total focus and dedication is to the activation of dormant potential of human beings, their assets, the appreciation of those assets, and once they are appreciating, the preservation of those assets in perpetuity. And so what you have built into this as well is a mechanism for a business owner, for example, or the custodian of an asset. Could be a skill they have, or could be a physical asset they have. If they get hit by a bus, then the custodianship of that asset goes back to the charitable trust, who are then bound by constitution to utilize that asset, first of all, to take care of the family or the people involved in the estate. If there's a will, if there isn't a will, take care of the family of the deceased, utilizing that asset but also they've got to protect and ensure the legacy of that asset as well. So they have a balancing act of, perhaps it was a really valuable asset, and there's a way to look after the family of the deceased, as well as create another asset off that asset that gets someone more junior to fulfill the obligations of that asset or whatever it may be. But the trust is in place for exactly this, to take care of the assets, the human beings. Every human being is the greatest asset of any nation. And so this is the vision. This is what I'm working towards. And the magnum opus of this coming together is actually a project called Sirius, whereby we've designed wealth-generating systems in the form of solar-powered mining rigs that have battery backup. They have a mining rig within them, and they're connected to the Starlink internet. So you can put them in remote places, and any area of the world that receives roughly 1,000 sunshine hours per year, which is moderate, can generate $21.75 US for every hour for every 6 square meters. Now, this is only going to get more and more efficient over time, but our goal is to achieve, deploy 200 hectares of these mining rigs all over the world, to fragment them as much as possible. But there's also a wireless electricity transmitter within these, and there's an incredible company in New Zealand that have patented the technology, and so you can put repeaters up and down the country, and these nodes, they can transmit wireless electricity covering the entire nation. And so all of a sudden we've got a venture that is powered by the sun. It's generating money out of thin air because it's mining cryptocurrency. It's totally self-reliant. It has a server attached. Maybe you can see where this is going. And on that server, obviously, there's a copy of the Powerhouse platform. And we have our own distributed network that's powered by the sun, that's providing the country with free energy. And also, because it's got mining rigs attached, then it is providing free transactions on the marketplace. And gas fees are obviously a massive issue with blockchain right now. So that is an absolutely massive project. But we've got an ecosystem of people who can actually cover all of New Zealand, Queensland and Australia, as well as 4 states. So we can actually deploy these in 4 states in the USA right now as well. We have 2 designers. We've got someone who can design these systems, one in Australia who covers New Zealand as well, and one in the USA. And the business model is it's a honeypot fund. So we attract investors who fund the implementation of these solar farms, for a yield from the cryptocurrency that's generated over up to 10 to 15 years. These units become viable, so they pay for themselves after 3 years. Some of them take 5 years. It depends on how much sunshine there is in the area and how many batteries need to be installed to cover when there's no sun. But so the investors pay for the installation of these. Owners of land provide the land in return for a share of the cryptocurrency revenue. And after a specific period of time, the custodianship of the unit is transitioned to the trust and is administered from there. But ultimately, where the purpose of this project is to provide gas-free transactions, so free transactions for every human being, and to demonstrate how we can utilize the sun to provide surplus and hopefully at some point free electricity to the entire country. If we install enough of these units in a way where they are spread, they are fragmented, but there's a huge volume of them, so it can never be destroyed. It self-regulates, and it's like a grid and covers the entire planet. And it's all being produced from the sun. This is how good the technology is now, and it's only going to get better. The guys that are involved in this project that I'm working with, three of them are based in Christchurch. One of them works with soil. The other two are developing batteries. And it's incredible. The technology is about to take a quantum leap due to specific discoveries pertaining to the ionization of soil and how it actually ionizes. So this is the future we're all heading into. And if it sounds too out there for you, it's already happening now. There are already DAOs that are governing themselves in a similar way to this, albeit a bit hodgepodge. But people are beginning to cotton on to the issue of perpetual fragmentation of currencies and markets. They have to be consolidated at some point. And this is my solution to that. So hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, don't worry. If you've got any questions and you want to get involved, definitely hit me up. We are, I'm in kind of an interesting position with it at the moment where, this is obviously always a humanitarian project, but with a very strong commercial interest, has to perform commercially. And I think there's tension within my team at the moment with the ones that are driven by the commercial success, and then myself driven by the humanitarian aspect. And it's kind of like, it's forcing us to form ourselves in this fashion now, which is exactly what we're doing. So very interesting, very exciting, lots of fun, but it can't happen fast enough if I'm honest. So anyway, if you're keen to get involved, flick me an email, and as with any project like this, it's all going to be the community involved wanting to drive this forward that will make it what it will eventually become. And my hope is that it'll become much greater than even what I can conceive right now, because of the gestalt impact of the community that gets involved. So, okay, I'll leave it there. That's it for now for my vision for a world that actually works. Okay, cheers for now.